Welcome to the first championship webinar. It's organized by us, 2349 Droid Force. Today we have two guest presenters from two veteran teams, 12808 Revamped Robotics and 18225 High Definition. Anisha and Neil, if you want to introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Neil. I'm a mechanical lead from 18225 High Definition from Bellevue, Washington, and my team has gone to the World Championships. I think this will be the sixth year. So,
Yeah.
and we have
So, I'm Anisha Sripada from 12808 Revamped Robotics, and I'm one of the outreach leads. And I think this is also our sixth year going to Worlds.
Okay, so today we'll be covering some basic travel and arrival logistics, what you can expect for pit, inspection, queuing, and then we're gonna have a Q&A section. The first half will be the questions that you guys sent in the Google form, and the second half will be questions from the chat. All right. So we are Team Droid Force. We're in Bellevue, Washington. This is our third year in FTC, and we have 8 members from 6 to 12th grade. We're a community team, and this is our first ever time actually qualifying to Worlds. And we found ourselves having like a ton of different questions about different logistics and stuff, so we decided to host this presentation. Um, Nisha, you wanna?
Yeah. Okay. So, hey everyone, my name's Anisha Sripada, and as I mentioned, I'm one of the outreach leads of Team 12808 Revamped Robotics. And today I'll be talking about packing, travel, and arrival, and some tips that I have for the World Championship in Houston. Okay, so here's a little bit about our team. As I mentioned before, we are Revamped Robotics. We're from Portland, Oregon, and we're a community team of 7th through 12th graders. This will be our ninth year in FTC, and I think this will be our sixth year going to World, so we're really excited. And our main mission is to break social, racial, and economic barriers and to empower the next generation in STEAM. Okay, so here's a little roadmap about what we're going to be discussing today. So first we'll talk about packing, what you should bring, whether it's for the robot or for the pit, so that you can stay organized. And then we'll talk about travel, how you can plan your travel and make sure that everyone arrives on time with everything that you need. And finally, we can talk about arrival, hotels, and the schedule for this event. Okay, so this is just a general packing list. We like to go into more detail on specific parts and tools to bring, but here is a general list that we follow. So for the robot, we obviously bring our robot. Bring number plates and batteries. For batteries, make sure to bring extra of these just in case and make sure that they are charged. Also for batteries, bring a battery beak so that you can check the voltage and get the best battery for your game. Bring your driver station, game controllers, and chargers. And then we like to bring a lot of extra tools in case and also as many spare parts as possible because things will break. And replacing them at Worlds is really easy when you have spare parts on hand. And then moving on to pit, we like to have a visual. So last year we did vinyls, mini boards, and a trifold, but it's up to you on what you want to do. We bring a canopy, which is just like the top part of our pit. And then we make sure to get a robot trolley or wagon because this makes it really easy to transport the robot and other things that we need on hand at the field, like number plates, batteries, the DS, and controllers. And then we bring table and chairs. We also bring a team banner and tablecloth with our logo on it because Worlds is such a big space that it makes it really hard to find teams. So a big banner makes it easier to find you. We like to have a dry erase board to let the judges know our status, so like we're in a game or we're at the practice field. And then finally, souvenirs, so that you're memorable to judges and other teams. And then moving on to judging, obviously this year judging is different. It's in the pit, which we'll talk more about later. But for judging, you're gonna need the roster, your EP, and then handouts. So we like to bring handouts. This year we implemented a newsletter, and basically it's monthly updates to our mentors. So we printed them out and we gave them to judges at states, and we're planning to do that at Worlds too. and then a visual for judging. We also like to bring a pit rotation schedule to make sure that a member is at pit at all times, especially this year because all judging is done at pit. And then finally, a pro tip from us is we like to bring our phones and use Live 360's SOS feature to alert our teammates. So basically, Live 360, as some of you may know, it's like an app to track where people are in your group. Um, it's not going to be very easy to track the exact location of your group. It's just going to tell you what street they're on. But if you use the car crash feature, it notifies every person in your group that you're in trouble, or in this case, that there's a judge at your pit. So we like to use that. And then team supplies, we bring safety goggles, obviously, team shirts so that you're recognizable, electronics like your programmer's computer, and then tape and Velcro strips for like setting up stuff. And then scouting at Worlds is really important because there's so many different teams at Worlds. So we bring clipboards, pencils and pens, notepads, and then scouting sheets, both pre-scouting and in-game scouting. And then this last thing is really optional depending on whether you're renting a conference room. But we bring all the elements of a field, which we ship later in a pallet, and we'll talk more about that later. Okay, so this is how we would plan our travel for Worlds. So for the schedule, Worlds takes place from April 29th to May 2nd. So our team generally plans to arrive on April 28th to prepare, to make any last minute changes, and to get ready for robot inspection and other things the next morning. Second, to arrange your flights, plan to arrive at either of the Houston airports. I believe there's the George Bush one, which is IAH, and then there's the William P. Hobby one, which is HOU. And then you can use the Metro bus to reach the convention center. And then finally, plan what items to ship. So we ship stuff from our field or pit decker in a pallet so that we don't have to carry it all. I believe that you can probably check it as a checked bag as well, though. And then we get our robot in a checked bag, and we've never really had any issues with transportation or breaking of the robot when we do this. And lastly, we plan who carries along other things like batteries. And this leads into our pro tip. I don't believe that you can carry loose batteries as a checked bag, so carry-on would probably be the best option. It is a little bit irritating because you're probably going to get stopped at security, but make sure you leave a little time for that. Okay, moving on to hotel. Generally, you have to book through First Housing, but there are a few options within this. So first, your coach can do a group booking for your team to keep things simple. Or if you're a volunteer, you can check through the volunteer link to get access to closer hotels. Our team specifically likes to stay at Marriott or Hilton because they're connected to the convention center, but there are tons of other hotels close by. And I would book these ASAP if you haven't already because the reservations or bookings go by like really fast. And then if you want, you can also book a conference room for a practice field, and you should check with the hotel for costs because these vary, and you should check with other teams to see if they'll share with you. Okay, moving on to planning your schedule. Worlds is really busy, so make sure to keep like a daily rough schedule. On the right is a general schedule, I believe was given to coaches, and I would go over this with your team and see what you're going to be doing throughout the day. We can quickly walk through what a typical day at Worlds would look like. So first, the pits would open pretty early, around 7:30, and many teams arrive then so that they can prep, check batteries, and make sure everything's working, but you can arrive later. Um, if you like slept late the last night. There will be inspection at 9 on Wednesday, and then practice fields will also be open for auto calibration and testing. And then on the main days, qualification matches will happen around 9 and continue throughout the day. So this is when you should be really aware of your match schedule, you should be scouting other teams, and you should be talking to judges. So judging will also be happening throughout the day, and it's changed from interview style to more of a pit style, as I will be talking about more later. So be prepared for them to come over. And then you'll get a lunch break, more matches, and then when pits close, you can go to your hotel, have a meeting, eat dinner, fix any issues, and prepare for the next day. And keep in mind that the final day will be a little different because that's when alliance selection, playoffs, and awards happen. On the left here is a QR code for important announcements throughout the day. You should stay updated on in case something changes. You can take a picture of this QR code. And then a few small tips. Practice field slots are very in demand, so I would go early and secure some slots for your team to practice. Um, Also, make sure to keep your match schedule handy so that you're not late or don't miss any games and that you're prepared. Um, Additionally, Worlds is a lot of really long days, so keep food and water handy. And finally, generally, our parents do this and we really appreciate it, but organize your food and meals ahead of time because it's a lot of people to plan for. Okay, so just remember these few things. For packing, make sure to stay organized, make sure everything is easy access for matches or judging. And then make sure you're prepared, charge everything, label things so that you can find them easily, and make sure that you have spares for everything that you can have. For travel, decide who's carrying things, what you're shipping if you are, and book your flights. And for arrival, book your hotel through First Housing, reserve a conference room ASAP if you want it, and make sure to keep communication with your team on your schedule. Thank you.
Um, I'm Neil, like I mentioned earlier. I'm gonna be covering section two, which is like your guide to like how to do pits inspection and queuing at championship this year. Uh, okay, so just a little bit about my team. We're from Bellevue, Washington. We consist of around 15 members from grades 8 to 12. We are a community team, meaning we're all from like different high schools, which is pretty cool. Um, our team started in 2020, around before COVID, and then we advanced to the World Championship 6 times in a row. So like every year we've competed, we've qualified for Worlds, which is pretty cool. And our mission as a team is to promote STEM and establish the next generation of innovators within like underserved communities. So just kind of what I'm going to cover today. I'm going to cover the three main things. I'm talking about like the pit area and like that's like where your team works during the event and how like you should really set up your pits. And then what rules to follow and how you can stay organized between matches. I'll talk about inspection and Oil's inspection is kind of weird. Check they check kind of weird things that usually they don't check at states or like they're more emphasizing on things that like usually they don't. Um, and then I'll talk about how queuing, because the flow of worlds for queuing is kind of weird, and I'll talk about like how the match flow works and like when to show up and what you should always bring with you and how you can never miss a match because at worlds they're like don't wait for you if you're late to a match. So so the pit area is the pit is where like your team's dedicated workspace for the entire event. And like there's where you'll fix your robots and change things like that and do maintenance, and also where your jetting will happen, like Anisha mentioned earlier. Um, so the pit's basically like your team's little workshop. It's kind of like how I think of it. So on the start of World, like a week before World, everyone gets assigned a pit location with a pit number. So that's how you'll find your pit. There won't be like a team member or anything that you can go look for, like there is at other like competitions. So you have to go find your assigned pit number, and then that's where your team will set up. Um, and like it usually takes a little bit to like find it, but you'll find it. And there's like also a map on First Inspires if you can't find it. So it's like unique to every division. So yeah. The thing is your pit is pretty big. It's like 10 by 10 feet. If you have a big team, you're not all going to be able to fit in there. But if you have a smaller team, it's a lot of space. A lot of teams bring like pop-up tents. And when I mean like a lot of teams, I mean most teams have a pop-up tent because they don't really give you anything in the pit. It's just kind of like a little space. So you kind of have to bring everything you need. But I think they usually provide one table, and then you need to bring like chairs and things like that to set up the area. But bring chairs because you do a lot of time in the pit, and standing for like 9 hours is a pain. Um, you obviously want to bring tools and spares, bring extra motors, cables, zip ties, batteries, and spare parts because something always breaks at Worlds because you're intensely playing really high level matches for like 4 days straight. So you really want to make sure you have everything because something will break. Also make sure your pit is easy to find. Well, this is a really, really big spot. Like I usually get lost. So make sure you put up like a really big team banner. So not only your alliance partners can find you, but also judges can find you very easily. Because if a judge takes a while to find you, they kind of get like pissed off. Then, okay, so just kind of like do's and don'ts for the pit. Make sure your stuff is organized and your workspace and like you want to project your team's works like image through your workspace. Make sure you label everything because if something gets lost, you want to be able to like identify that it's yours or make sure that like you're not mixing your stuff up with other people's because everyone has the same stuff at Worlds. So very commonly things will get mixed up with another team that's close by. Um, have a designated pit crew. You shouldn't have everyone in the pits at once. Because then one, it'll get really hectic, and then also two for judging, that could be kind of weird if you have everyone in the pits. And then also like it gets kind of cramped if you have all 15 of your team members in the pits. Um, Make sure you always track your battery charging status because having good batteries at Worlds is really important. Know your robot inspection stats before the queuing. That's pretty self-explanatory. Make sure you pass inspection and try to be very nice. I think the biggest thing at Worlds is just kind of like be really nice with other teams. And like, I think Worlds is pretty cool because you get to meet a lot of people from like other countries. So try to like build like connections there. And low key, like being friends with the team early on is very helpful for alliance selection, especially being like a second pick if you don't do well in qualification matches. Like for us last year, we didn't do too great in our qualification matches because we got kind of unlucky, but we were like friends with a lot of teams, so we were very like in demand for our second pick. Um, but don't, and then here's like don'ts. Don't like block up aisles and keep everything inside your space. You don't want like another team to have a bad like image of you because you're hogging their pit space. Um, these are like common sense that run your robot in the pit without safety glasses. Make sure you don't use all your batteries before matches even start. And then don't wait until last minute for queuing because that'll piss off the queuers. And then just don't forget to recharge your batteries and things like that. And then make sure you don't modify your robot a lot or like at all because then you're going to get reinspected. Okay, so at Worlds, you kind of have to pass inspection before competing, which I know a lot. And then inspectors are like volunteers who want to help you get improved. So they like don't purposely try to fail you, but if you come prepared, inspection usually goes pretty quickly. But there's a lot of things that inspectors usually fail teams. Like it's pretty common for teams to like not pass inspection. Um, Inspection usually takes like around 20 minutes, and then inspection has you have to be re-inspected if you make any modifications. Okay, so here's what they check. Like here's like the common things to obviously check. The size, make sure you fit 18 by 18 by 18. Check your electronics, make sure everything's legal. Make sure you don't have sharp edges. I remember last year they were very like particular about having sharp edges on your robot. Like they like specifically asked us to just like shave down a couple of things. Um, Make sure your software and driver station is like up to date. Uh, Make sure your team members on the robot are visible from the sides, and then just make sure your robot's not oversized or outdated driver station app or missing team numbers or exposed wiring, or you might get failed doing inspection depending on how severe it is. Here's some more tips that I kind of just like went over. Just I think the biggest thing out of this is just like do self-inspection the day before. Like you actually have the competition just to make sure you do pass anything because there's a lot of like small details that you can like miss. So there's like an FTC like official inspection checklist that you can use by yourself, and that's the like same checklist that they'll use for Worlds. So you can just like go off of that and make sure you pass everything. Um, Also make sure to check your DS app. I know they might fail you if you don't have like the DS app version that's up to date. Um, yeah, and then just make sure like you fit within the 18 by 18, and then also try to go pretty early since the lines get really long for inspection, and you don't want to do that. And then if you change motors or anything, or if you do anything, just like tell them you need to reinspect. They're usually pretty chill about that. But like just make sure you do it because if they like ask you if you didn't re-inspect, they get kind of pissy. Okay, I'm talking about queuing now. So queuing it is a lot more time at Worlds. Queuing is like in the staging area near the field where teams line up before the match. And then if you miss the queue, you might miss your match, and that would basically count as a loss for you, or like you're probably gonna lose, or they'll put you as like a did not show. And at Worlds, like they like will not wait for you because that'll mess with the entire match schedules, and there's hundreds of qualification matches that go on at Worlds, so they're not inclined to wait for your one qualification match. Um, so try to show up early. around like 2 matches before you, or they'll come get you. By the way, sometimes they'll come get you, and sometimes you just have to go. It just depends like how it is. Make sure like once you're in the queuing, you don't go back for pit repairs because you can't leave the queuing. Once you like check that, then make sure you bring your like robot driver station, phone, battery, and your drive team. But like just like make sure you have like that as well. Um, for scheduling, they don't give you an actual physical schedule at will, so you can use like First Inspires or FTC Scout is what my team uses. Check your schedule. Um, then make sure you fix repairs. I know like if you're flying into Houston, usually the robot gets damaged during transit. Like even if you have like the nicest case, something will always break. At least that's the case I've experienced. So make sure you check everything and do maintenance on everything before you actually like start the matches day of. Because you don't want to realize something is broken and like it's gonna take a while to fix. Um, I can't emphasize having like charged batteries enough because having like very charged batteries can make a pretty big difference in your robot performance. Um, remember the queuing rules, and then make sure you just like when you get to queuing, just like tell them your team number and like just showing up is enough. And then you also have to tell them the qual match and the alliance you're on. And then when you're on the field, just like play your best. Okay, so just like kind of like a review is in your pit, make sure to stay organized and label everything. Make sure you have like a rotation of pit crew so people can like be fresh and like not get like tired when pit judges come around. Make sure you charge your batteries and then re-inspect your robot for any changes. For inspection, do self-inspect the night before, update your driver station app before the event, measure your robot in its starting configuration, which means like when you press like in it, like you're still within that 18 by 18. And then you go to robot inspection like as early as possible. And that's pretty early. It's around like 7 or 7:30. It's like right after field calibration, but there'll be like a schedule about that. Then make sure for queuing, you're at least 2 matches early. You have like an assigned dedicated queue watcher if like someone comes to the pits to like queue you or just to be watching the flow of the match schedule. Make sure you bring your robot driver station and batteries, and then you can use FTC Scout or the official event page to track the actual matches, and you can also see your scores and like who your alliance partner is going to be.
Okay, and lastly, we'll be discussing a few things that are new this year. Okay. Oh. Okay, so this year a lot has changed in different aspects. The first and most prominent one, I believe, is judging. So this year, instead of formal interviews, the judges will be conducting only pit interviews. And this can happen essentially at any time on Thursday morning, so be prepared. They will be conducting 2 rounds of interviews. The first and initial interview is with one TA judge, which is more of the outreach awards like Reach, Connect, and Sustain. And then you'll get an MCI judge, which is more of the robot awards like Design, Innovate, and Control. This initial interview is for every single team and it's around 10 minutes. You are able to give up to a 5-minute prepared presentation to the judges without interruption. And then after that, the judges will ask you 2 baseline questions that they will use to compare you with other teams. And then after that, if there's any time left, they're going to ask more TA or MCI questions from the judging question bank. And then there's a second round of interviews. This is when the judges will follow up with you if they think your team was strong in a specific award. And this is basically what last year's normal pit judging is as well. And these will happen around Thursday evening to Friday morning at any time. So again, be prepared. And pro tip is to keep a physical copy of your EP with you for reference so that you can show the judges visuals and different data that you have. And then there's also a few other changes. Two of the bigger ones is that there's more teams qualified to Worlds this year, so there are new and more divisions, as well as a new pit map, and you can find both of these on the first website. And finally, a huge change is that engineering portfolios are now due online at April 6th, so instead of at the competition. So make sure you've submitted your EP online before Worlds for awards.
All right, everyone. So we're gonna start going to the Q&A section. As I said before, we're gonna start with some of the questions you guys asked in the input form, and then we'll go through the meeting chat. And you want to start?
Okay, so the first question is, what are the options for transportation of robot and other items for teams traveling within US and alongside the US?
As I mentioned, we transport our robot as a checked bag, and we've never really had any issues with breaking. And again, battery transportation is irritating because of security, but it shouldn't take you that long. So we just carry them as carry-ons. For other bigger things, we ship them in the pallet, and the rest of the stuff we just bring them along in our carry-on bags.
The next question, what should we include in our event design that will help with learning presentations?
We definitely like to have visuals, so we believe that it gives judges something to look at, and it also gives you reference if you get forget what you're saying. And we also like to have cool souvenirs and games because it makes you more memorable.
Um, we can only carry limited spares, so how do we get help with things that 3D prints and parts at the championship, or if we need to borrow like a modem or both?
You don't necessarily need to bring like everything, but it's nice to have at least a little bit of spares in each thing. Like if you know something is prone to breaking, like a 3D printed part, then definitely bring a lot of spares for that. But also try to bring motors and stuff because your motors might burn out sometimes or something might go wrong. So if you can try to bring as much as possible, and then if you know that something's like probably not going to break, then I guess you don't need to. But I would just try to bring everything.
How crowded are the practice fields, and is there a long wait if we need to use them between matches?
I would say they're pretty in demand and crowded, so because there's so many different teams, so I would definitely sign up early.
What's one connection that you made at Worlds that helped your team later?
Right. Can you repeat the question?
What is one connection that you made at Worlds that helped your team later?
Uh, I think one connection that I made at Will's is, I mean, like I have a couple examples, but just meeting teams at Will's is really cool because if you guys have like if you guys just like kill each other, you can like do like an outreach event or something like that, or do something like that as well. And then like post Worlds, and then during Worlds, we made this connection with this one team called Blackout, and they ended up picking us because of like the relationship that we had with them as like their first pick, which was very like beneficial for us just to like talk to them. Because like if a big thing about like being in like an alliance is like you spend like 2 days with your alliance basically. So alliance captains want to make sure that who they're picking is like not only a strong team, but also like they have good chemistry with them, like as like people.
Are we able to set up our pit on the 28th or only on the 29th?
I believe that you have to set it up on the 29th. I don't think you're able to do it
Wait,
on
I
the
think
20th.
I think you can do it.
Oh,
I
really?
remember. I think last year my team did it the day before quals, but there's like a designated time. There's like 2 hours to do it.
Oh,
But
okay.
most of the stuff gets done on the 29th though. But you don't have to do it on the 28th unless you want to do like a whole like extravagant pit. You can probably just do it on the 29th. I think it'll be fine.
That is like all my questions.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Wait, this is good stuff. So we do have, so if you have any additional questions, you can contact us at teambirdforce@gmail.com, or you can message either Neil or Anisha on Discord. So
Oh, so these are some useful links. All right. Thank you, everyone.